Russia has escalated its military assault in Ukraine, bombing a major military base just 20 kilometres from the border with Poland. Local officials say 35 people were killed and 134 were injured when Russian missiles hit the International Peacekeeping and Security Centre near the western city of Lviv. It's believed to be the westernmost attack launched by Russia since the country's invasion began 18 days ago. Meantime, people living in villages outside the capital, Kyiv, are being bussed to safety amid intense fighting. Figures from the United Nations suggest nearly 2.7 million people have so far fled the conflict, mostly across the border to Poland.
A US journalist working in Ukraine has been shot dead in a town outside the capital, Kyiv. It's the first reported death of a foreign journalist covering the conflict. Police say 50-year-old Brent Renaud and two other reporters were targeted by Russian soldiers in the town of Irpin.
Well, there seems to be a lot of discussion on Talkback Radio in letters to the editors right around the country about the possibilities of NATO, the United States or the UK commissioning a crack hit squad to take out Russian President Vladimir Putin. It seems to be a real hope for many people that the way to stop this needless war is to try and take out this complete evil megalomaniac. And I get that because this is an authoritarian regime which won't even admit it's invaded Ukraine. Even at these farcical peace talks in Turkey, Russia can't stop lying through their teeth. Every time a ceasefire is agreed to allow displaced Ukrainians to flee, and that has to be the first step to any negotiations, they do the unthinkable. They set up humanitarian corridors and set landmines or shoot these people dead. What a shocking bunch of war criminals they all are. So firstly, let's look at the chance of Putin's enemies in the Kremlin removing him. Under their constitution, that's Article 93, it allows for the impeachment of a president on the basis of serious crimes. Now, that might sound promising, but hold that thought. That would require a two-thirds vote in both chambers of Parliament. It's never happened. In addition, the vote would also need the consent of the Constitutional and Supreme Courts. Now, can you imagine how many Putin loyalists have been appointed by him to those ranks? They're reportedly thick as thieves. And there's a third consideration in this almost impossible hope that the Kremlin may revolt: the Federal Security Service. This mob is a feared, Big Brother-style unit which primarily watches the elite and the powerful to detect any sign at all of internal dissent. If they get a sniff, the dissenter simply disappears. And aiding the FSS is the FSO, the secretive Federal Protection Service. Now, the UK Telegraph described this squad this week as the Kremlin guards and Putin's black-suited and earpiece-wearing personal security detail. Every day, the FSO hands Putin a dossier on what's going on with the elite based on information they get through agents and informants and even phone taps. Can you imagine the scrutiny? So in summary, forget the idea that Putin will be taken out from the inside. So that brings me to Putin being taken out from the outside. Now, I'm sure the CIA or MI6 in the UK have discussed the assassination options. Well, again, the UK Telegraph reports that the security protocols around the body, as Putin is known by his security detail, are massive. They're complex, they're comprehensive, to the point of major paranoia. He doesn't travel outside his palaces or outside the Kremlin. But if he just happens to do that, it's in an armoured limo, escorted by a huge motorcade with motorcycle outriders, vans full of heavily armed FSO officers, an ambulance, and an electronic warfare vehicle which jams any bomb detonators along the route and can divert drones. Good luck getting through that. Putin also has a food taster for every meal, while body sensors monitor for pathogens and poisons. Talk about super paranoia. Which brings me to the FSO's Kremlin Regiment, another division. These are 5,500 soldiers standing watch outside the walls who, in any crisis, have been trained to exchange their uniforms for camouflage and AK-74 assault rifles. They have martial arts skills to boot. Of course they do. And one final point about taking him out from the outside. The CIA don't have a good track record for this kind of thing. As you may remember, the CIA launched numerous attempts to kill Cuba's Fidel Castro. As a matter of fact, they total 638 attempts. They failed on every occasion, and he died of natural causes aged 90. And although we're seeing online footage of protest on the streets of St. Petersburg, Moscow and other cities, I remember being in Beijing the day after the Tiananmen Square massacre, March 1989. And although the Chinese military massacred pro-democracy students after that uprising, there was a buoyant mood in Beijing, a real hope that the CCP was only months or even a year away from being dismantled. 33 years on, the Chinese regime is not just still in control, it has rewound the clock to the frightening and murderous days of the Cultural Revolution. Meanwhile, in Russia, they're being fed a litany of lies which blames the Ukraine people themselves for destroying their own country. As a result, 70% of Russians, we're told, support Putin's military action. In fact, families are being torn apart at the moment, according to the BBC, as Russians are being encouraged and rewarded for reporting any inkling of dissent within their own families. The hope of justice at this time involving Putin being removed, both or either internally or externally, looks as impossible as it ever has been.